Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of our Seven Investing podcast. My name is Simon Erickson. I'm founder and CEO of Seven Investing, and today we're going to be talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, and other cryptocurrencies. These are things that are an enigma and a challenge for most of us to understand, but we brought in an expert to make sense of them today. My guest is Spencer Randall. He is the co-founder and principal at CryptoEQ, which is helping all of us make sense of the cryptocurrency markets. Hey, Spence, thanks for joining Seven Investing here this morning.
Thanks for having me on, Simon. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're going to talk about a bunch of things today. One thing I'd like to ask you about would be the status quo of where we stand with cryptocurrencies, and I'll also spot you up with some use cases to see how things are going out there. But let's start at the 10,000 foot level first. You founded CryptoEQ a little more than a year ago, and your stated goal is, what I see, to make cryptocurrency from being complex to much more simple. Can you explain to me why you founded this company and what your goals for CryptoEQ are?
Yeah, the founding principles, like you said, we are crypto enthusiasts at heart. We've been in the space for years and years. Combined 15 years experience amongst the partners. And we acknowledge that crypto is very complex, it's very difficult, it's very hard to wrap your head around. And so we found a CryptoEQ to make that simple, to make learning about crypto simple. So we exist to simplify investing, trading, and learning about cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and Ethereum.
That's great. And, as a stock market investor, and our audience is typically individual investors here at Seven Investing, we look at a lot of fundamental metrics, earnings, cash flows, anything else that flows through the cash flow statement, the income statement, the balance sheet. Are there similar fundamental aspects of cryptocurrencies that you can just methodically dig into and figure out what the best opportunities are out there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Simon. So when you think about the playbook that works for equities in fundamental analysis, and then you look at crypto, I think most people admit you need to rewrite the playbook and you need to write a new playbook. You need to create a new system because what's the balance sheet of Bitcoin look like, right? What does their corporate governance model look like? Well, it's decentralized and there's no CEO and the founding team is pseudo-anonymous. So the founding team's anonymous. So how do you evaluate that team, right? So we wrote a new system at CryptoEQ, just like our trading signals. Our fundamental analysis is built from the ground up, from scratch, with 10 core categories. So regardless of what crypto you're talking about, you have this common frame of reference and our methodology and our system for evaluating the fundamentals of any given crypto.
I think that's fantastic. And I've seen comparisons to what you're doing at CryptoEQ to what Morningstar did for years with investing, kind of putting some analysis into each one of the cryptocurrencies that are out there so we can make sense of it. Spence, let's talk about what's going on in cryptocurrency world. And this is a bit outside of my circle of competence, so I'm going to pass the ball to you to explain this to me. But you have described the last time you and I chatted that we could be in a period of consolidation for Bitcoin and Ethereum and a couple other cryptocurrencies out there. What does that mean?
Yeah, so it was earlier in the year that you and I connected, and we were in a sideways pattern with a lot of the large cap cryptos. But checking in on the market, a lot's changed and things can move fast in crypto. So year to date, Bitcoin's up 50%. Year to date, Ethereum's up 170%. And when you compare that to things that I'm sure your audience is watching daily, the S&P 500 is up 5% on the year. The NASDAQ 100 is up 29% on the year. Gold's up 25% on the year. So all these things that we kind of would watch daily when we're trading, more traditional markets, the blue chip cryptos are outperforming them by a large margin. So at CryptoEQ, our job is to watch the crypto market, and I think that we're seeing the beginning of a longer pattern and a sustained move to the upside. So I think we've broken out of that consolidation that you and I talked about earlier in the year.
And are we starting to see companies embrace and adopt cryptocurrencies? It seems like the headlines tend to focus around Warren Buffett calling it rat poison, right? Or Ray Dalio calling it a speculative bubble. But then you've got other people like Jack Dorsey building cryptocurrency trading or even transactions directly into Cash App, right? That he's using for Square. So, I mean, is there kind of the companies that are the innovators out there that are really all in and embracing this? And then another group of companies that seems like they're resisting this move to crypto?
Yeah, I think it's a very gradual process. You mentioned some gotcha headlines from some prolific investors. Everyone you just mentioned, I have immense amount of respect for. I think the closer crypto is to a thought leader's area of competency, the faster they get it. So when you talk about people like Buffett and Dalio, I think it may take longer for them to fully appreciate the value proposition of cryptocurrencies if they ever really do come around, right? It may just not be for them. But when you mention tech investors like Dorsey or Peter Thiel, some of the early thought leaders to really embrace this technology and quickly either add positions to their portfolio of actual crypto companies or integrate it into their businesses and their existing businesses. So I think you've got thought leaders on both sides of the fence even today. But the gradual kind of trend that I'm seeing is, and it took me years to fully wrap my head around the value proposition of Bitcoin. Once people get it, the more they learn about it, the more conviction and confidence they have in the space. So one of the really big recent headlines is Bitcoin and corporate treasuries. So in the economic uncertainty of today's climate, and when you think through, okay, what do you do with cash, right? So you've got people that have immense amount of cash in their corporate treasuries, and they don't want to leave all that asset in cash. So where could they allocate it? Well, gold's been attractive, right? That's kind of a nice default play. But what else could you do? And so you have people like Michael Saylor, the CEO of MicroStrategies. The ticker for everyone out there in the audience is MSTR. They allocated 425 million in cash in their corporate treasuries to Bitcoin. So I think of them as a leader in terms of how you think of your corporate treasury. And now Michael Saylor is one of the biggest Bitcoin bulls in our industry. So the more, as time goes on, I think we'll have more people like Peter Thiel, like Jack Dorsey, like Michael Saylor, and the list goes on and on, that continue to help educate the public about what Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies can do.
I spoke with Jeremy Almond earlier this year. He's the CEO of a company called Paystand out in California. He calls blockchains the new cloud 2.0. He sees this as a platform, and even the cloud was kind of a platform that built upon e-commerce too, right? So he sees comparisons between what Amazon did with e-commerce, where all of a sudden these tools are out there for the right company to take advantage of, innovate on, and just plow ahead of its competitors by using these new tools. Do you think there are a handful of companies that are the early leaders in adopting blockchains or even individual cryptocurrencies that puts them a step ahead of their competitors right now?
Yes, it's another great point. I think that it'll get to a point where you have to integrate blockchains and cryptocurrencies in some means to stay competitive, because it's so disruptive. When you think about payment processors, Square was one of the early adopters to integrate Bitcoin. PayPal has now followed. When you think about enterprise blockchains, I think that's a little bit of a different with the payments use case and exchanging value peer-to-peer or B2B. I think we're further along. I think with enterprise blockchains, we still have a lot of infrastructure to build. It's a very competitive space. This smart contract infrastructure is very competitive. There's a number of projects that are viable solutions at scale. Ethereum is the one that has the most network effects built around it. It's in the crypto world, it's a household name. It's got the most developer activity. It's even taught in curriculums now across the world as the default blockchain language, Solidity, the default language to code in if you're going to develop blockchains. Now, there's a lot of network effects, but they're working very hard in releasing a scalable Ethereum 2.0. So right now, the bottleneck with enterprise blockchains is the leader in the infrastructure, which is Ethereum, has an immense challenge. It needs to scale fast because it's got so much attention and so much use that the network is bottlenecked with transaction fees, what are called gas fees. So similar to the bottleneck we experienced in Bitcoin when people wanted to trade it up in 2017 and transaction fees were really high, Ethereum is now experiencing that because there's so much attention and use. And so, the option after that is, well, it can grow and it can solve those problems, or something else can outmaneuver it. And that's kind of the question that is posed to the market right now is an Ethereum competitor going to move in and take some of that market share for enterprise blockchains and smart contract technology? Or will Ethereum 2.0 grow and scale and solve these scaling issues and continue to be the dominant smart contract language? That's kind of the narrative that's unfolding in the crypto world that we're watching very closely at CryptoEQ.
Yes, I can imagine that, Spence, and a lot of moving parts to every one of those narratives. Just to have some fun here with the interview, what I'd like to do is I'd like to spot you up with 4 use cases for cryptocurrencies. Not necessarily Bitcoin specific, not necessarily Ethereum specific, but just the overall use case. And I'd like you to give each of these a traction score. And I don't have a better name for that, I apologize, but the idea is a 1 to 10 ranking of how likely and how important this will be within the next 5 years of actually gaining adoption and gaining traction. So a score of 1 is there's no way this is possibly going to happen. This is a pie in the sky idea that no one's going to actually get behind. A 10 is an absolutely, this will definitely catch on and we're going to start seeing this everywhere. Does that sound fair game, Spencer? Do you understand the rules of the game?
Sounds like a fun game.
Okay, first and foremost, the first use case is exactly the one that you mentioned earlier, which is Bitcoin being used in corporate treasuries where companies, especially global companies, are putting their cash into cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, and the time horizon is 5 years or less?
5 years. Yep, 5 years for every one of these. Yep.
I mean, it's already happened, so I'd give it a 9. I think that more people will follow MicroStrategy in that approach, especially in the next 2 years.
Okay, great. 9 for corporate treasuries. Second use case is people using Bitcoin as a digital gold, as a store of value.
Yeah, so more on the retail front, I think getting away from corporate treasuries. Yeah, I would say I'd give that an 8. Yeah, just very quickly, comparing, Bitcoin to gold, I would say Bitcoin is more portable, more verifiable, more divisible, more scarce, and it's also censorship resistant. So, these kind of like staple properties of money, Bitcoin does outcompete gold as sound money. There are a few things that it gives up ground on to gold, namely durability. It's digital, it's not physical, but in most areas, I think Bitcoin is better money than gold.
Okay, so two solid hits there. One for corporate treasuries, one for a store of value on the retail side of it. Let's think global here. How about there's a lot of foreign exchange and fees that are being applied to people just trying to transact or send money in different currencies around the world. What would be your traction score for using cryptocurrencies for global remittance?
There's projects like XRP where they're founded for global remittance. So I would say I would put that at a 5 because of the time horizon. We haven't seen as much traction on that front. I haven't seen a digital asset emerge that can handle the throughput of something like a Visa network or the legacy SWIFT system or all of the payment processing that the entrenched remittance companies do. I haven't seen as much traction there personally. So I put that as a 5.
Okay, fair enough. 5 for that one. And my last use case for you, this was something I thought was rather interesting, was a company called Kraken was just introduced as the first cryptocurrency exchange to actually secure a bank charter where you actually have access to federal payments infrastructure and can more kind of seamlessly integrate with a lot of the existing infrastructure that's out there. I believe that Kraken is now have its charter to operate in Wyoming and actually conduct transactions. Spence, what do you think about cryptocurrency exchanges gaining bank charters in the future, next 5 years?
Depending on the crypto exchange, I think it's great. For the traction score, I think that you'll see other exchanges follow Kraken, so I'd give that a 10. Yeah, I think that I wouldn't be surprised if there's another major exchange that obtains a bank charter this year. Yeah, I think in order to stay competitive with Kraken, you'd want to, right? So, Coinbase, Gemini, a number of other great exchanges. I wouldn't want Kraken to have too much of a head start there if I were in their shoes.
Especially considering the switching costs and the stickiness of banks that we've gotten used to over the years, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, think about if you like to trade and invest with Kraken, think of how nice it is that you can potentially have your fiat and your crypto insured. That part's still, is it going to be FDIC insured? That part's still up in the air. I think that it's possible. Whether it's offered out the gate is TBD. So I'm watching that closely as well.
Is that going to be a key part of the thesis for transactions, that people maybe right now don't like the volatility of holding Bitcoin or Ethereum because they could go up and down in value so much versus cash, which is not going to? If you get an insurance or an FDIC insurance for something like that, does that change the game of using crypto for everyday transactions?
I think the fact that like close family and friends are now asking me about it kind of shows that the market sentiment's shifting. I don't push crypto on anybody. If people want to ask questions, absolutely, and I'd like to talk. I love talking about this stuff. So I've got family and friends that want to have that conversation now, and this time last year they were a hard no. So I think that the more you see kind of what makes you comfortable about the traditional financial system, step into the crypto world, the more you'll have a bridge to go between the crypto world and the traditional world. And I think insurance helps people feel more comfortable with the downside risk.
Makes a lot of sense. I've just got a couple more for you here, Spence. The first one is I would really like to hear your thoughts on who is or who are Satoshi Nakamoto.
He, she, or they are brilliant minds, is a brilliant mind. I don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about the mystery, more so appreciating their gift to the world. There are people that really do investigate a significant amount of time trying to sort that out. I haven't really ever found it fascinating. I like thinking about what's possible now that they've given this awesome gift. Yeah.
Fair enough, Spence, even though I personally do find it fascinating, and I would love to have answers on who Bitcoin's anonymous founder or founders truly are and where in the world they actually are these days.
I wish I had answers for you, Simon. I truthfully do not.
That's okay. Spence, yeah. Your identity is safe with me. You can remain anonymous for the time being. That's totally fine. Another question is brokerages. Do you have any brokerages that you recommend for people that do want to actually buy or sell Bitcoin? I don't know if you promote any. I don't want to make it too political, but do you know of any that are commonly used that people can get access to this?
Yeah. At CryptoEQ.io, we list 3 exchanges as affiliates. So there's 3 exchanges that we trust, and that's Kraken, Coinbase, and Gemini. So all the founders have used these exchanges and would recommend their services. We don't take any kickbacks outside of affiliate fees. So it's not a paid relationship. It's just a genuine recommendation.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for those. And I saw that you also just recently recently upgraded your own site. You're at version 4 now and had some new
Yeah.
features that you added. What are you excited about that you guys are working on right now?
Yeah, the mantra is always be launching, right? As startups, you've got to be agile and fast, and so we've launched 4 versions of the site. Version 4 launched last week. What we're really excited about with version 4 is we've built out a landing page that really explains the value proposition of each individual aspect of our services. We also launched our advertising services to complement our consulting services. And from version 2 and onward, we've always had our subscription. That's really been our bread and butter. So we provide a lot of free content, a lot of research, a lot of straightforward market insights right out the gate, completely free to all users. But then there's other tools that we offer as upsells. And so we've really just added on to, as a user, what you can do to take the next step in your journey. So we've always had that strong foundation, but we've layered on more opportunities for our users, customers, and clients as we've grown and as we've launched more versions of the site.
That's fantastic, Spence. Now, other than us signing up for CryptoEQ and getting access to your brilliant mind and seeing what's really going on in cryptocurrency world, our audience is mostly individual investors. You know, we look more at stock markets and publicly traded companies, but we're interested in what's going on out there. It certainly impacts the entire world and markets everywhere that this is gaining traction. What are a couple of things that you think that we should be paying attention to that's going on with cryptocurrencies?
Um, I wouldn't recommend this as a first step, but if you are familiar with Bitcoin and Ethereum, or you develop some familiarity with it, reading more about decentralized finance and reading more about DeFi would behoove anyone that's ready for a more advanced exposure to cryptocurrencies and blockchains. Um, Decentralized finance the infrastructure has been developing for years, but it really gained a lot of public attention this year. And to me, it really kind of mirrors what happened in 2017 with the initial coin offerings. So with that exuberance, you had like Ethereum was one of the first ICOs, right? So you had really great things come out of it, like Ethereum, right? Ethereum's ICO, I believe, was in 2015, maybe 2016. But then you also had a bunch of things follow that weren't necessarily here to stay. And so I think that's happening again with DeFi. There's going to be these great DeFi projects. There's going to be a handful of great DeFi projects. But there's going to be a bunch that may not be here to stay and may not be lasting. So identifying those winners early is a challenge, but the upside is incredible, right? I mean, you could do 100x if you find the right DeFi project. Very similar to ICOs. So if you're looking for asymmetric risk and outsized returns, DeFi is something to be watching and something to learn about.
Well, thank you very much. Again, Spencer Randall, he's the co-founder and principal at CryptoEQ. Their website is cryptoeq.io. I have checked it out several times. I've learned quite a bit there. And Spencer, thanks very much for spending the time here with 7 Investing today.
Thank you, Simon. Thanks for having us on.
And thank you for tuning in to this episode. We are here to empower you to invest in your future. We are 7 Investing.